Please lend me money for my brother's hospital bills. What? Are you kidding me? In the middle of the night, the doorbell rang loudly, and Nicholas visited our home in the pouring rain. Hearing the situation, Tyson, my husband, raised his voice and shouted angrily. Unforgivable. How could he put my precious grandson through such a thing? With Tyson, who had brought a bat from his room, I headed to visit someone. My name is Lily, and I'm 65 years old. I'm a housewife who enjoys visiting cafes as a hobby. My husband, Tyson, owns a construction company. Originally, our son Harold was supposed to take over the company, but during his high school days, his behavior was so bad that it was unthinkable he could eventually take over. He wouldn't go to school, skipped classes, and it was a daily occurrence for him to be taken in by the police for wandering around late at night. Enraged by Harold's continuously disrespectful attitude towards society, Tyson told him to find a job on his own. Harold, in the midst of his rebellious phase, felt his pride was wounded and ran away from home. He didn't come back home for a while. Dad, I have a child. I have a wife. I came back today because I wanted to show you your grandchild. One day, a few years later, Harold suddenly returned home. Next to him stood a nervous, unfamiliar woman. At first, I didn't understand why she was so nervous, but I soon realized the reason. A cute baby was crying in Harold's arms. That was our first grandchild, Nicholas. At that time, Harold was working as a company employee and said he met his wife at work. He explained later that he had tried many times to come home but couldn't find the right opportunity, and it ended up like this. He also said that not responding to our many calls was his way of taking responsibility. I said I didn't need your help when I left, so I thought I couldn't face you unless I had a proper job and lived a decent life, Dad. Harold murmured, scratching the back of his head awkwardly. His wife, standing next to him, added politely, "We're sorry it ended up like this." Harold followed her lead and apologized for not informing us something so important sooner. Seeing the two of them, Tyson scratched the back of his head awkwardly and let out a deep sigh. It's been 6 years. Ha! It's been 6 years since you left home. You've been working hard on your own. And, thank you for staying by this fool's side. It's a happy occasion that we've had a grandchild. So, let's not have such gloomy faces. Lily, order some pizza or something. They've come all this way. Make yourself comfortable. Tyson's face as he said this and laughed was the kindest smile I had ever seen. Seeing this, Harold and his wife seemed relieved, and our home was filled with laughter for the first time in a long time. Since then, Harold started visiting our home more often. Nicholas also grew up quickly, and I thought these peaceful days would continue forever. That's what I was thinking. But then, suddenly, Harold's wife left a divorce paper and disappeared, leaving Harold and Nicholas behind. When Tyson questioned Harold about what had happened, it turned out that Harold had a huge debt. A friend invited me to invest in stocks. I have a low income, so I consulted him about the future, and he recommended stocks. Harold, who made a big profit initially, got carried away and even borrowed money to buy more stocks. Then, the stock price he bought plummeted. He ended up with a debt of $20,000. What were you thinking? Borrowing money to make such a risky bet? Do you have any sense of responsibility as a parent? You have to protect your family. I can't help it. With my annual income of around $30,000, I needed money to support my family. I had my own struggles. The moment I heard their argument, Nicholas, who had been playing with toys, started crying loudly. I hurried to soothe him, and after hearing his voice, Tyson also seemed to come to his senses. After calming down, he persuaded Harold to contact his wife first. Tyson decided to take on Harold's debt. If this happens again, I won't let it slide. You need to realize that you have responsibilities. Understand? Harold, faced with Tyson's harsher than ever words, hung his head in shame. After that, Harold repeatedly tried to contact his wife, but he could never reach her. It turned out years later that she had started a new family with another man. This incident led to their divorce. Nicholas was taken in by Harold. Since then, Harold and Nicholas have been living with us. Fortunately, because Nicholas's mother left when he was too young to remember, he didn't have many memories of her. Thus, he didn't seem to miss his mother and grew up strong and healthy, relying on me, Tyson, and Harold. Grandma, look. I passed the high school entrance exam. Before I knew it, Nicholas had become a third-year middle school student. Unlike his father, he was diligent and serious, excelling in both sports and academics. Tyson praised Nicholas's efforts highly, and he was accepted into one of the top sports high schools in the state. To attend that school, Harold and Nicholas had to move out. It's too far to commute from this house, and I have acquaintances there. I can't keep relying on you both forever. So, I'm moving out with Nicholas. If you do anything to worry Nicholas, I won't let it slide. Remember that. Shh. I know. Despite Nicholas's hard work, the atmosphere between the two was tense. Tyson couldn't forgive Harold for his past mistakes, and Harold felt resentment towards Tyson, not trying to mend their relationship. In the end, with a deep rift between them, Harold and Nicholas moved out. For a few months after they left, I was constantly worried. But then, one day, I got a call from Nicholas saying Harold had a new girlfriend and she was a wonderful person. She takes care of the house properly, and I have a little brother now. Dad will probably remarry. I'll be happy if she becomes my mother. And my little brother is super cute. Despite being busy with club activities, Nicholas checked in on me and Tyson almost every day through video calls. It turned out the acquaintance Harold mentioned was his current girlfriend, and Nicholas was surprised when he found out the truth. He suddenly told me I had a little brother. Of course, I was confused. She had lost her previous husband to illness and was raising her young son alone. Unable to leave her like that, Harold started living with her around the time Nicholas entered high school. Nicholas, having no particular disadvantages, didn't object. As long as you are doing well, that's all that matters. But if anything happens, you can always rely on us, okay? You are our priority, Nicholas. Thanks, Grandma. I couldn't notice at that time that Nicholas's smile looked pained. Then, a while later, something happened. That evening, we were hit by a severe downpour. A hurricane was approaching, and the trains were suspended. The heavy rain was expected to continue the next day, and nearby schools declared an early closure. Tyson's company also prioritized safety and decided to close the next day. This rain is terrible. The day after tomorrow, the site might be too muddy for us to work safely. With the year-end approaching, I wanted to do a big cleanup. We also need to go shopping. Oh. Should we go with the usual champagne and pizza for New Year's Eve this year too? Although we had some rare downtime together, the heavy rain left us with nothing to do. We had no choice but to spend the time in the living room watching our usual year-end TV special. Before we knew it, we had fallen asleep together, and we woke up in the middle of the night. The doorbell was ringing. Ha! Who could it be at this hour? Looks like someone's here. But at this hour? Groggily looking at the time, I saw it was 1 a.m. Who rings the bell at this time of night? Tyson's face turned stern, and he walked to the door, annoyed. Yes, who is it? Nicholas. What? The moment Tyson opened the door and saw Nicholas, his loud voice echoed throughout the house. Hearing Nicholas's name, I hurried to the entrance. There, I saw Nicholas drenched and covering his little brother with a raincoat. Grandpa, Grandma, please, help my brother, save this child. As soon as he said that, Nicholas collapsed from exhaustion and relief, and Tyson hurriedly carried him inside. I took the baby from Nicholas's back, quickly undressed him, and warmed his wet body with a warm towel. The baby seemed to have a fever and was breathing a bit heavily. Seeing his listless state, I knew it was serious and called a pediatrician I knew to come over immediately. While Tyson was taking care of Nicholas in the living room, he dressed him in his own clothes and dried him off. Fortunately, Nicholas was just exhausted and relieved, with no injuries or abnormalities. It's just a cold. Babies have higher body temperatures than adults, so there's no need to worry about this level. He'll be fine if he rests today. Hearing the pediatrician's words, Tyson and I breathed a sigh of relief. When I went to check on Nicholas, he had just woken up and was sitting up. You're awake. What happened? Grandma, what about the baby? Where's my brother? As soon as he regained consciousness, Nicholas was more concerned about his brother than himself. Trying to reassure him, I smiled gently. Don't worry. We warmed him up immediately, so he's fine. But he has a fever. We need to take him to the hospital right away. Where's Grandpa? Just then, Tyson entered the living room and Nicholas pleaded for his help. Grandpa, please. He has a high fever. Dad and his girlfriend are out drinking and I can't reach them. You're the only ones I can rely on. Please. Lend me the money for my brother's hospital bills. I'll pay it back with my part-time job wage this month. Part-time job wage. What do you mean by that? Frowning at Nicholas's cryptic words, Tyson and I learned a shocking truth. After I left you, I initially attended the high school I got into. But one day, Dad changed completely. It turned out that Harold met his girlfriend at a bar and, influenced by her gambling habits, quit his job. Now, he makes a living mainly from gambling and rarely comes home. His girlfriend was nice only at first. After Dad got hooked on gambling, she dumped all the chores and care of my brother on me, even making me cover the living expenses. Nicholas tried to consult with the school about the unbearable situation, but Harold stopped him. Harold frequented his girlfriend's bar and even got involved with shady people. Since then, Nicholas had been controlled by force, living according to Harold and his girlfriend's whims. I couldn't balance taking care of my brother and my club activities, so I dropped out of high school. I begged them to let me at least graduate. So I'm now attending a correspondence high school while working multiple part-time jobs. In his spare time, he took care of his brother and did the housework. He was a young carer. Hearing this, I trembled with anger, clenching my fists tightly. Tyson, listening beside me, lowered his head and said nothing. I was already furious at my son, but his girlfriend too. I couldn't forgive them. Seeing our reactions, Nicholas panicked and begged even more sincerely than before. I don't care what happens to me. But my brother is still a baby. I'm only managing now because he smiles at me. If he were gone. Please. I'll definitely pay you back, so lend me the money for my brother's hospital bills. What? Are you kidding me? Tyson shouted louder than I had ever heard before. You don't have to do that. Don't say such foolish things. Nicholas, not expecting to be yelled at, flinched, and Tyson, with a furious look on his face, grabbed a bat from his room and headed out. Hey, where are you going? Where do you think? I'm going to knock some sense into those idiots. How could they do this to my precious grandson? That idiot hasn't learned his lesson despite everything. We spoiled him. I'll straighten him out and wake him up. Tyson's eyes were bloodshot, and he was completely enraged. Nicholas, not wanting such a thing, hurriedly joined me in trying to stop Tyson. However, as Tyson struggled to break free from us, we heard crying from the back room. If we don't hurry, it will be too late for him. Recalling what had happened, Nicholas frantically begged to take his brother to the hospital, but I quickly explained the situation to him. Learning that his brother was fine, Nicholas collapsed on the spot, crying tears of relief. I was so worried about what might happen to him. I'm so relieved, really relieved. Nicholas started crying out loud. His genuine affection for his little brother was palpable. Tyson, too, regained his composure thanks to Nicholas's behavior and the baby's cries, and we all returned to the living room. What should we do from now on? Honestly, I can't trust Harold and his girlfriend with Nicholas. I don't intend to remain silent either. Even though Tyson had calmed down, we couldn't let things stay as they were, after learning the truth. Nicholas also expressed his wish for help if possible. I'm worried about when my brother grows up, even if it's just me. I don't care what happens to Dad and his girlfriend. As long as my brother is safe, I'll do anything. Lily, contact him. What? That fool is using shady people to threaten Nicholas. An eye for an eye, we'll fight the underworld with the underworld. Hearing those words, I immediately understood his intention and made a call. Not understanding what was happening, Nicholas watched anxiously. After a while, we managed to find Harold's current location. Since we couldn't bring the baby who had just calmed down, we entrusted him to the pediatrician who had rushed over and was watching over the situation nervously, apologizing and promising to return soon. Accompanied by some people, we headed to the place and entered the bar. Welcome. Oh, Ty. We've been waiting for you. As we entered the bar with Tyson leading, a woman who seemed to be the hostess of the bar, seeing Tyson, lit up with excitement and came over to us. It's been a while. How have you been? I was wondering what you were up to since you haven't shown your face for a long time. And Lily, long time no see. How have you been? I'm well, thank you. It was rare for the madam to leave the counter to greet guests, and the attention of the staff and patrons quickly focused on us. What's going on? Did a celebrity show up? No way a celebrity would come to a place like this. Wait, Hal. Hal. Hearing the commotion, we saw Harold, heavily drunk, and his girlfriend, fawning over him at a booth in the back. As we glared in their direction, Harold's girlfriend noticed and nervously called out to him, who still hadn't noticed us. Madam, could you handle that matter I asked you about over the phone? Of course. It's a request from none other than Ty. Everyone, please take care of it. With the girlfriend panicking, the madam instructed the customers and staff who had been pre-informed. The customers and staff nodded, and one of the patrons, who was out of Harold's sight, pointed a phone camera at us. Dad? And Mom too. What are you doing here? What do you mean, what are we doing here? Do you even know what you've been doing? Eek. Harold, who had lazily looked in our direction after his girlfriend pointed it out, sobered up quickly upon seeing us. He turned pale in an instant. Clearly, he hadn't expected us to come and was shaken by the unexpected situation. As Tyson, with an enraged expression, yelled at the two, Harold let out a pitiful scream. His girlfriend, too, was trembling in fear while looking at us. How does this look like the behavior of a responsible working adult? What did you say to me when you left home? Wasn't it that you wouldn't trouble Nicholas? So, that kid called you guys. Triggered by Tyson's words, Harold realized how we found out about the situation, and figured out that Nicholas had turned to us. As he looked around, he saw Nicholas standing at the entrance, and immediately grabbed an empty bottle and stood up. Nicholas, you snitched on me to Dad. As he threw the empty bottle at Nicholas, a man swiftly grabbed Harold's arm and took the bottle from him. The man then twisted Harold's arm behind his back to restrain him. Confused by what was happening, Harold started struggling once he realized he was restrained. What are you doing, old man? Let go of me. You're a pretty cheeky brat, aren't you? My boys will take care of you. Ha! The old man, still holding Harold in check, spoke with an air of confidence. Not understanding the implication, Harold looked at the old man in bewilderment. Suddenly, a few rough-looking men barged into the bar from the entrance. Brothers? What are you doing here? Have you come to save me? These were the thugs Harold was connected with, and he must have thought they came to rescue him after hearing the commotion. For a moment, Harold's eyes lit up, but the men who had arrived burst into mocking laughter. The leader approached Harold and lightly slapped his face, revealing a shocking truth. What nonsense are you talking about? It's the opposite. You've been doing some nasty things to Tyson's grandson, haven't you? Tyson. At the mention of that name, Harold and his girlfriend turned their eyes towards Tyson in surprise. We got a call from the madam. We were shocked when we heard the story. You were threatening your son using our names, weren't you? How do you plan to take responsibility for using our names to do bad deeds? Ha! Surrounded by several men, Harold was released from the old man's grip but had no means of escape. The rough-looking men encircled Harold and his girlfriend, preventing them from escaping, while the customers and staff in the bar cheered them on. Is he really your son, Tyson? Unlike you in your youth, he seems to lack guts. Don't say that. I'm also completely disappointed that my son turned out to be such a pathetic person. Lily, you would have been happier if you had married me. It's tough enough dealing with this idiot, let alone having to take care of such a useless son. If you ever want to get married, just say the word. I'm always ready." The old man laughed heartily. Seeing the interaction between Tyson and the old man, Harold, unable to grasp the situation, muttered in confusion. "What the hell is going on here? Who is this old man? Why do my brothers know my parents? Who the hell are you?" Panicking, Harold bombarded them with questions. The old man, snorting, revealed his identity to Harold. "I'm the surrogate father of the guys taking care of you. In other words, he's our father." "What?" Harold was so shocked that his eyes almost popped out. His girlfriend, standing next to him, also had her mouth agape in surprise, while Nicholas watched in astonishment. "And this guy is my best friend from our youth, bonded through fists. We're basically inseparable. I was stronger. So he always lost and cried like a baby, right, Tyson?" "What do you mean I cried? You were the one who always lost." The two old men butted heads and bickered, while their subordinates smiled wryly. The madam then began to explain the details. These two were the legendary duo who ruled this area. They were so famous that no delinquent in the state didn't know them. No one could match them in a fight, and many people admired them. They were so cool. Ty protected the town publicly, while this guy handled things behind the scenes. Tyson would have been part of our world if he had taken a wrong step, so we're no different. Don't sulk just because you lacked education. As the old men exchanged barbs, the madam approached me, linking arms, and revealed another shocking truth. And Lily was the Madonna of these two. She was so talented and beautiful that she was famous in our town. The fights these two had over her are now nostalgic stories. Madam, stop it. It's embarrassing. Sis, you're our idol too. There's no one in our line of work who doesn't know these three. Harold, stunned by the revelations, couldn't close his mouth, and his girlfriend was equally dumbfounded. The most surprising thing is that Lily was the strongest in terms of physical prowess. What? Hearing about physical prowess, Harold and his girlfriend looked astonished. Neither of them could beat me. Lily, don't say that. Couldn't beat her in a fight. Harold hesitantly spoke, trying to understand the meaningful words. The madam, sighing in exasperation, began to explain the situation to Harold, who seemed genuinely clueless. Lily's family is renowned in karate. Her father won national championships and was active as a professional. Lily herself has been practicing karate since she was a child and has won numerous tournaments. Harold and his girlfriend turned pale, looking like a sound effect might accompany their reaction. Their view of me changed drastically. After hearing from Nicholas about how you were using shady people to threaten him, I asked the madam and her associates for help. Since Tyson is a regular here, they gladly agreed. Explaining why we were in this situation, the madam gave a mischievous smile while flashing a peace sign. I've turned a blind eye to your misdeeds until now, but this time, I won't let it slide. Don't think you can get away with it like before. You've done the one thing a parent should never do to Nicholas and the others. To drive home the point, I cracked my knuckles menacingly. The thugs around us glared at Harold, and the customers watching seemed to look down on them in disdain. You'll take full responsibility for this. You'll also pay for using our names to threaten your child. You haven't even paid back your debts, yet you're wasting time here. Don't take us for fools. Harold, his collar grabbed and intimidated, began to cry pathetically. Seeing this, his girlfriend panicked and insisted she had nothing to do with it. She started trying to save herself. I'm not involved. He started the debts on his own. I was just here for work. I only drank with him because my shift ended and I had free time. I didn't cause you any trouble, did I? She wanted to be told she was safe. Her desperate plea made my blood boil. Enraged, I shouted at her in a voice so fierce that even the thugs around us recoiled. Don't be ridiculous. Enough with the nonsense. As a parent, as a mother, you did the one thing you should never do. She collapsed onto the sofa at my words and fierce expression, looking terrified. She looked at me with fearful eyes, desperately apologizing, but I had no intention of forgiving her. I advanced on her with a terrifying aura, glaring coldly. Not only did you neglect your own child, but you also stole Nicholas's precious time and placed all the responsibility on him. Your child had a high fever. What would have happened if we hadn't intervened? It could have been irreparable. Do you understand the responsibility you bear as a parent? That's... And you, Harold. Huh. Rendered speechless by the scolding and the undeniable truth, she bit her lip in frustration. Harold, caught off guard, bore the brunt of my fury. Shoving childcare onto your child while you indulge in pleasure. Don't you feel ashamed? What you did is unforgivable. You stole Nicholas's precious youth, and you won't get away with it. You and your girlfriend are going to face hell from now on. At that moment, the thugs restrained the two and began leading them out of the bar. What? What are you doing? Let go. Don't touch me. Damn it. Nicholas. Struggling to break free. Harold and his girlfriend were no match for the burly men. As they neared the entrance where Nicholas stood, Harold began pleading with him for forgiveness. Nicholas, help me. I'm sorry. From now on, I'll take care of you and the baby. I won't make you suffer anymore. Please, help me. Yes, Nicholas, please. We were wrong. We'll change our ways, so please help us. If this keeps up, I won't be able to see the baby again. At those words, Nicholas reacted and told the thugs to wait. Respecting Nicholas's wishes, I told the thugs to hold off, and Nicholas, who had been looking down, slowly raised his head. You said you don't want to be separated from the baby and you're asking for help, right? Yes, that's right. From now on, we'll cherish you and our son. So please, help us. Then why didn't you help me when I asked for help? What? Interrupting her desperate plea, Nicholas turned a gaze full of resentment and hatred towards her. When I collapsed with a fever and couldn't take care of my brother, I asked you for help, didn't I? And what did you say? You told me. It's your fault for not managing yourself, and went gambling with Dad, didn't you? That's... Stumbling over her words at Nicholas's accusation, she was left speechless. Nicholas continued, logically cornering her with his words. Dad, what did you do when I asked for help to carry on playing baseball? You put your foot on my head and laughed so hard, didn't you? Remember you said, you're not good enough to be a starter. Give up and work like a grown-up. You crushed my dreams, didn't you? That's not true. It was really because our finances were tight. Then why? Nicholas clenched his fists so tightly they shook as he shouted at the two trying to make excuses. Tears of frustration streamed down his face as he glared at them with anger. You never worked yourself to death for us. Why do you always take the easy way out? When Mom left and you were in debt, you didn't try to change a single thing about yourself, did you? How can we believe anything you say now? And you. As he let out all the pent-up emotions he'd been holding back, Nicholas directed his fury at her. You said you'd never see your precious son again? After neglecting him all this time, what nonsense are you spouting? When was the last time you changed his diaper? When did you comfort him when he cried at night, bathe him, or cook for him? I had to beg my part-time job to let me bring him so I could take care of him all the time. A lousy parent like you has no right to say you want to see your son. You're not parents, you're just trash. Don't ever show your faces to us again. Hearing such harsh words from the usually gentle Nicholas shocked them into silence. The defiance they had shown earlier dissipated, leaving them speechless and motionless. Seeing them in this state, Nicholas seemed to come back to his senses. He lowered his head and tried to hold back tears. I shielded Nicholas behind me, preventing them from seeing his face. Then, I delivered the final blow on his behalf. Everything happening now is the result of your own actions. Handle your mess yourselves. You will never contact us again. Regret it in the depths of hell. At that signal, the thugs took the two to their mansion, and they never appeared before us again. Thus, we succeeded in protecting Nicholas. Since then, Harold and his girlfriend have been subjected to living hell under the old man's control. They were thrown into a labor environment so harsh that chores was an understatement. And all the money they earned was sent to Nicholas and his brother. They supposedly cried and begged for forgiveness daily, but the old man didn't allow any whining in his presence. Attempts to escape ended in their quick capture, and they now toiled in the most grueling underground labor. Nicholas, hearing about this, showed no mercy and even said he wouldn't mind them being in a worse environment, making the old man laugh. Since then, Nicholas and his brother have been living with us. Though his brother was almost taken in by her family, Nicholas convinced them otherwise with a heartfelt plea. I could endure the treatment from Dad and her because he was there. Even if we're not blood related, I've raised him as my real brother. Please. Let him stay with me. Supporting his plea, I showed the parents the video recorded by a customer that day. Seeing the footage, they were convinced. Thank you for getting so angry for our grandson, they said, trusting Nicholas and us. With the condition that they could see their grandson a few times a month, Nicholas now lives happily with his brother in our home. Wanting Nicholas to continue the baseball he loved, I negotiated with a friend's adult team, and now he's playing baseball again. He successfully obtained his high school diploma and is currently balancing work and baseball while being supported by that company. His brother has started attending daycare and is growing up healthy and strong. When I start earning enough, Grandpa can retire without worries. Don't be silly. You still need to lean on me. I'll take you to a great barbecue place, so keep relying on me. Seeing Tyson laugh like that made me smile too.